On February 8, 1883, in the town of Trest, located in modern-day Czech Republic, a young Schumpeter was born. At the age of 10, Schumpeter and his mom moved to Vienna. You see, although Schumpeter was Czech by blood, he was actually a big Austrian nationalist. He would spend most of his life and career in Austria. He especially liked their leader, Franz Joseph I of Austria. At the age of 23, he graduated from the University of Vienna with a doctoral degree at the Faculty of Law with a specialization in economics. After he graduated, he moved to Ukraine to do some professor work for about 2 years, and then he moved back to Austria to continue his career as a professor. But then World War I happened, and he had to temporarily suspend his career. But after the war, Austria had accumulated a lot of war debt, and they need to repay it and tackle it. So Schumpeter got assigned to the Minister of Finance of the Republic of German Austria. He had to take on the war debt that the country had accumulated. But his tenure was very short, only about 2 years, and after that he started working at a bank. And he had some trouble there, so eventually he decided, you know what, I'm gonna move to the United States. And he did this to further his career as a professor. He taught at Harvard here. During his life, it was the neoclassical period of economics. So famous economists like Pigou, Marshall, Menger, Walras, and Pareto, they had their biggest works published around this time. But Schumpeter had some personal views of his own. He was brought up at the University of Vienna and in the Vienna school, but later on in his career he would come to project some of their viewpoints. He also disliked Marxism and socialism, and we'll come back to this later. And he also didn't really like Keynes's viewpoints, and Keynes was really popular at the time. You see, Keynes was all about the short run. He said, well, in the short run, it won't really quickly go back to equilibrium. So you can do some monetary policy, and price discovery won't be instant. And Schumpeter was like, well, I think it will be instant. And we see nowadays too, that if there's new information, the prices of stuff, the price of stocks, the prices of exchange rates, they can change overnight. So I think Schumpeter was proven right to some degree. And at the age of 60, he published his famous book in 1942. And now we'll go on to discuss why this book was so famous.
Schumpeter's most influential theory is the theory of creative destruction, which he already mentioned in his book, Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy. So, what is creative destruction? Well, creative destruction is Schumpeter's idea of how the economy develops. And it's very integral because it's based on the theory of business cycles. To start it off, Peter Schumpeter thought that one class of people were necessary for this and the base of economic development in creative destruction, and that is entrepreneurs, the risk takers who seek innovations to make their own business and stand out. So, as I already mentioned, he believed that entrepreneurs were responsible for innovations as they took risks to further their own business and find new ways to be better than their competition. So, what are innovations? Really quickly, to say it plainly, innovations are new ways of supplying commodities. And what this means is either finding a new market for this commodity, improving or finding a better production for this commodity, or even finding a new commodity in general. And he believed that with these innovations, there's able to occur dynamic changes in economic development. And what this means is that the economy is able to develop and there's able to be more money with the same level of output because of these innovations making society more efficient. Now, Schumpeter did emphasize how important these entrepreneurs are, because without these entrepreneurs, well, if these people aren't taking risks to find innovations to be competitive over their competitors, then what will happen is that there's no innovations. And as I just said, without innovations, there's no dynamic changes. We're not improving the way of providing commodities. So instead what occurs is static equilibrium. And static equilibrium is very bad because that means that the economy is not developing, it's staying at the same level it already has which is sad because with innovations you could just make more money instead. Now, something very important to link it to now to business cycles, innovations were not stated to be linear by Schumpeter. He did not believe them to be constant, and he does not think that's the case, and I'll explain why in a bit. Not to be confused though with inventions and discoveries, Schumpeter argued that throughout history, despite there being some points where it was concentrated, because people remained at relatively the same level of intellect, inventions and discoveries remained constant and were always able to go through history. Now, going back to innovations. Innovations instead were believed to be in a wave form, which is actually correlating to what I meant about what Schumpeter said about the business cycles. He thought that business cycles came in waves. In waves where it was high, at the top wave, what occurs is that there's a favorable innovation climate, which means that entrepreneurs are able to, through the use of inventions and discoveries, are able to have innovations, and also they're able to outsource the old to the new. And what happens in a favorable innovation climate, credit expands because now investors, they see that there is probably a room for improvement through these favorable innovators. And what happens is that they're able to give more credit to these entrepreneurs. But because of this, because there's more money now, what happens? Higher prices and higher wages. And when this happens, because now the product is at a higher price and the wages are higher, investors are deterred because they have to spend more money to get into this, and they have to spend more money to get the good, and in general it's a bad investment by now. And what happens when there's not enough money to support both the new entrepreneurs and the old pre-existing companies? Old versus new. Now, of course, the new entrepreneurs have innovations which make them competitively advantageous over these old companies. So what happens is that the old companies eventually either have to find new innovations or they go bankrupt, they go out. It's just the rule of creative destruction. And what this creates in the end is business closures, as I just said. The old businesses usually have to shut down and make way for the new innovative entrepreneurs. Now, something that's very important about theory of creative destruction, as I just mentioned, because of the old versus new, something that's very good is that monopolies are not able to exist within this theory. Because as I just said, the old companies in this case would be the monopolies, and they are the companies which already have a market share. But when coming against new innovation via creative destruction, they're not able to compete and therefore get removed by newer companies, and so they cannot keep their monopoly status.
Now let's talk about a comparison between Schumpeter and other famous economists. Now first Marx. They both talked about dynamic capitalism, but Marx says the dynamics of capitalism, it'll eventually lead to a workers' revolution. And Schumpeter was like, no, it will lead to business cycles and creative destructions. And there's no worries for monopolies because new innovations will make the technologies of the existing monopolies obsolete. So they disagreed about the end point of the dynamic capitalism. And he also disagreed with Solow on technological progress. You see, Solow said technological progress is really important for improving the standard of life for the average person. And Schumpeter said, well, technological progress is important, but it is important for the dynamic capitalism and the business creation and the business cycles that come with it. So that is how they're different. And Schumpeter's work, it caused a lot of growth and development research, and especially after Solow came, a lot of growth research was done in the field of economics. This was our presentation. Thank you for watching.